Here they come.
Welcome to this week's episode of Here They Come. I'm Paul Ramlow.
And I'm Kate Lockhart.
How you doing today, Kate?
I'm doing well, thanks, Paul. We got a nice show lined up here. Why don't you go ahead and get us started?
All right, Kate. St Elmo Hero has been in the news quite a bit lately. This is the now 5-year-old pacer who started out his career 20 for 20 in the win department. And that kind of got me and you thinking about some other notable streaks in harness racing. And so we've managed to come up with quite a few that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I sent a request over to David Carr, who's sort of the USTA's statistical guru, and he came up with a list of horses, some interesting streaks, some of them recent, some of them a little older. Some of the more recent ones that stood out to me, Muscle Hill had an impressive run back in 2009 and 2008, won 20 races in a row, unfortunately lost his first start, but then won everything else. So it was quite a streak he put together. Dewey Cheatham and Howe did it a little differently. He won 17 races in a row, and it was his first 17 races before he was defeated. Paul, I know there were some others that jumped off the page to you.
Well, looking back at the historical winning streaks, Kate, Brett Hanover jumps off the page, starting off his career 35 for 35. That's something that's going to be hard-pressed for any horse to do, I think, as the years go ahead. Although there was another horse that came very close, and that was A Worthy Lad in 1989-1990. This was a trotting colt based in Ontario who went 30 for 30 as a 2- and 3-year-old and then was exported overseas, so he never lost a race in North America. I remember that horse because I voted for him for a Dan Patch Award as 2-year-old trotting colt of the year after his perfect 17 for 17 freshman season. So those two, very historical, very long winning streaks. A couple other ones that jumped off the page at me were Sanibel Island, who won her first 23 starts and went on to become one of the great pacing mares of all time. And then just recently, Mya Tri, a trotter, had won 21 straight races and got a little bit of media attention as that streak commenced. So those are some of the ones that David gave us. Another one that I noticed was Panoramic Art had won 20 races in a row just a couple of years ago, and that horse kind of reminded me of St Elmo Hero. Panoramic Art started on the Iowa Fair circuit and then moved on to the Meadowlands, won the Oil Burner Series at the end of the 3-year-old season, and then went on to win the Clyde Herd in the Exit 16W at 4. That's kind of the path St Elmo Hero has taken now, starting off on some smaller circuits and then now made his first start this year at the Meadowlands. So that's the kind of reminder I had with St Elmo Hero.
Yeah, it's interesting. Arts Place was another one that sort of stood out to me, Paul. And like St. Elmo Hero, his long streak was at 4, and he went 16 for 16 as a 4-year-old. Also, Mya Tri was another impressive pacer who had a streak of 19 straight wins, won his first 19 starts, then lost 2 consecutive races before going on another streak of 18 wins. So there have been some impressive streaks in the history of harness racing. These are just a few that jumped off the page to us. If you have any others that you'd like to send in or horses that you think we should take note of, please send me an email, kate.lockhart@ustrotting.com. Always happy for feedback and be interested to see what folks come up with.
Well, recently, Kate, our good friend Tim Tetrick was in the headlines once again as he was named the HTA Driver of the Year for the 3rd time in the past 4 years. Points are awarded from 25 for first to 1 for 25th in 3 categories: wins, money, and UDR. And Tim won by a half point over Dave Pallone in this year's competition.
Yeah, it's interesting. Dave Pallone feels like he's always near the top of the list with this. He's so consistent year in, year out. But Tim has just put together a string of seasons here that has been so impressive. He was first in Money Won with $16.4 million, second in wins in the year with $720, and 14th in UDR with an impressive UDR of 336.
And Tetrick is also nearing another career milestone. He's closing in on 6,000 career wins. That would make him the youngest driver ever to reach that milestone. Of course, he's become the youngest driver to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and 5,000, Kate. So I guess one more rung up the ladder for Timmy.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Tim's reaction to that. He talked about, look, records are made to be broken, and I realize I'm doing this, but there are some young drivers out there that are coming up the ranks. Doug McNair just became the youngest with 1,000 wins. It'll be interesting to see how these guys chase Timmy as their careers progress as well. But as it stands now, Tetrick has just been putting together impressive season after impressive season. It's great to see him going for his 6,000th win, which I'm sure he'll get in the near future. If you haven't seen our Day in the Life series with Tim Tetrick, it's definitely something worth checking out. Rich Johnston and our photographer Mark Hall went out to spend a day with Timmy in New Jersey and Pennsylvania earlier this summer, did a great 3-part video series. It's been incredibly popular on the website. Go to vimeo.com/ustrotting to see that 3-part series with Tim Tetrick.
Well, speaking of drivers in the spotlight, Kate, Richie Silverman returned to racing at the Meadowlands earlier this month after missing over 6 months due to an accident.
Yeah, it was an awful accident, Paul. Happened back in June 18th. He broke both his ankles and had a severe concussion while he was driving at the Meadowlands. It was a terrible thing. His wife and children, I think, were in the crowd that day, saw the accident. He said the rehab itself has been tough. He was in a wheelchair for a long time, slowly worked his way back, worked his strength back. He says his brain is 100%. His ankles are serviceable. Still not quite 100%, but he's managing to get around and is happy to be back racing. So it's great to see him make a return. Sometimes I feel like we take these drivers and the risks they take every day for granted. It's always it just sort of brings it to your attention just how dangerous this sport is when you see one of these terrible accidents. Just happy to hear he's healthy again.
Yeah, Richie's one of the good guys in the sport of harness racing. And after just talking about Tim Tetrick and drivers setting milestones, it kind of dawns on me Richie was well ahead of his time when he broke into the sport in the mid-'80s. In fact, he was the youngest driver ever to earn $1 million in purses in a single season. He did that in 1985 when he was just 21 years old. And then a year later, in 1986, he won a Breeders' Crown at Garden State Park with Masquerade. That made him, at the time, the youngest driver ever to win a Breeders' Crown. Richie's had an outstanding career as a trainer and driver since then, but I think a lot of people may not have remembered that he was a very young prodigy back then and just had some great years as a young driver.
Paul, one of the most popular stories in the USTA newsroom right now is that the Meadowlands released their schedule through August.
Yeah, absolutely. Something a little different. We knew they were going to race through the end of March 31st. They have announced, no, they will not race in the month of April, and then will resume in May and then go through the stake schedule into August. Hamiltonian weekend, as usual, will be the first Saturday in August, then they'll race 2 weeks after that. One note is that a few series races would not be contested this year. The Sumac Lad, Jersey Girls, Art Unger, and Hiram Woodruff. Those races would have been held in April. They will not be held in 2011, though.
Yeah, it's interesting, Paul. Meadowlands Pace will take place on July 16th, and the Hamiltonian is scheduled for August 6th. The racing is going to be Thursday through Saturday for a total of 81 race dates. The last 2 weekends in August, it's going to be weekend racing only, but it's nice to see them get a schedule out there. It's nice to know when some of these big major events are going to take place in 2011. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, just note that any breaking news at the Meadowlands in New Jersey, we carry at the U.S. Trotting Association website newsroom, so be sure to check daily, and we'll keep you up to date on what's going on in New Jersey.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Here They Come. We'd like to thank our producer, Rich Johnston. I'm Kate Lockhart.
And I'm Paul Ramlow. Join us again next time for another episode of Here They Come.